Doobie doobie doo. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we're live. Breaking news as of 3 hours ago. We have breaking news in Jetland. As first reported on Frankie from Flatbush Channel, Frankie Sports Programming Network, FSPN. We're going to assign Garrett Wilson. We're going to assign Sauce Gardner. We're going to do all these things, and we're going to be happy because today is a happy day to be a Jet fan. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat. If you can see and hear me okay. Over there in the chat where there is now, apparently, on YouTube, they've gamified the chat. They gamified the chat, everybody. So now you could be number 1 or 2 or 3, or you could rank up there very high if, and only if, you're actually good enough. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of the goals. Take advantage of everything. Phil Adams is here. Phil, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Todd says audio is good. All right, good. Worldwide news, audio, visual, 100%. All right. How about the bell? So, in case you missed it, the New York Jets extended cornerback Sauce Ahmad Gardner to a 4-year, $120.4 million contract. And it's even better than that because only about, let's get these numbers right, only about $86 million is guaranteed. So that's still a lot of money, but the last 2 years of the contract for both Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner are not guaranteed. So Gardner and Wilson contracts in 29 and 30 have no guaranteed money in them. So again, this is good general managering. So you got to give credit where credit is due. You know, with Muji and Glenn this year so far, it's been a little hit and miss. They've gotten some things right and other things not so right. But these two contracts, they did precisely correct. There's nothing bad about these contracts. They're proactive. Shows everybody, hey, we're going to pay you if you deserve it. No problems. We're not going to wait. We're going to be proactive. And we will make the contracts fair to the player, fair to the agent, and also fair to the club. We're going to stack the guaranteed money in the front of the contract. We'll have to see how this plays out. There's different theories about where you put the guaranteed money. But to me, I like the guaranteed money in the front of the contract because they're much more likely to be good in that time and much more likely to fall off later in the contract. So why not put the guarantees up front? And then if they're bad at the back of the contract, very easy to get rid of them or restructure the contract. So it seems to me that Muji and AG are not only doing the things, but they're doing the things smartly, which is a breath of fresh air, I gotta tell you. Big Green is here 2 good days in a row. Yeah, that's why we gotta come on the air and do a live stream, because there's not going to be a lot of these days as a Jet fan where you can celebrate anything and be happy about anything. So when they happen, you got to celebrate when you can, you know? So basically everybody is saying the same thing. And now the other thing is, yeah, Todd, see, like Phil and Todd are battling it out to be the number 1 Frankie from Flatbush Channel commenter. Will it be Todd? Will it be Phil Adams? Who knows? You get extra points for Super Chats, I'm just saying. You know, will it be Big Green? We don't know. Will it be someone else? I mean, it's, you know, it's a dogfight at the top. It's a dogfight at the top. So, what Zach Rosenblatt is reporting, which is actually exciting, I think. Zach Rosenblatt says, next item on the Jets' agenda, signing rookie tight end Mason, not Jason Taylor. And he says, there's been a holdup. This is quoting Zach Rosenblatt tweeting. Zach Rosenblatt tweeting, there's been a holdup on pretty much every second round pick around the league since many are seeking fully guaranteed deals. But this is the best part. I wouldn't expect Taylor's situation to linger too long. So that is very telling. When Rosenblatt says something like that, he's not saying per source. He's just saying, I wouldn't expect Taylor's situation to linger too long, meaning he probably doesn't have permission to say that from the Jets, but he's probably getting it from them unofficially. So it's just his expectation. It doesn't say per source. He's just speculating. But these guys don't just speculate out of thin air unless it says something negative. Then they'll speculate out of thin air all day long. Since this is something positive, I would expect it unofficially came from the Jets, and that's good news. Now, for those who don't know why we haven't signed Mason, not Jason Taylor, yet, it's because the two guys in the second round that have signed already, Schlesinger with the Browns and Higgins, Jaden Higgins with the, I think it's the Texans, they got 100% guaranteed deals. All their contract is now 100% guaranteed for a second round pick. First round picks, that's automatic, happens for them automatically. Second round pick, I guess you can negotiate. So they negotiated and got that, and that's pissing everybody else off. It's a big contentious point about guaranteed money because once a precedent is set, now all the other guys in the second round are like, well, they gave it to him, he got it, I should get it. When we were talking yesterday about comps, okay, it's the same thing. It's all about comps in these negotiations. Once you give one guy something, then the next guy in line is going to go, they got it, he got it, you got to give it to me, right? So that's what's going on in the second round. That's why none of the other second rounders have signed. The clubs don't want to do 100% guaranteed because of the injury risk to these guys is so high, mostly the reason. But the players, of course, want the comfort of knowing they're 100% guaranteed in case of injury. You know, it's mostly what it's about. They play a violent sport. They want to get as much money as they can, guaranteed. It makes a lot of sense. So we got to see how this plays out and who's going to blink. But the positive thing is that Rosenblatt is putting it out there that he wouldn't expect Taylor's situation to linger too long. And I don't think that wording is, haphazardly put out there. I think that's very specific. Now, the Jets, the timing of all this, training camp starts next week. And you know that Mason Taylor wants to be there. This is a good kid, obviously. He knows what the NFL is all about, with his father being Jason Taylor. And by the way, for those who don't know, his aunt is Joy Taylor. So if you enjoy Joy Taylor's, let's say, work in the media, you are probably going to get a little bit extra Jets content out of the mouth of Miss Joy Taylor because, she's going to be keeping track of her nephew, right? Pretty closely, I would think. So we'll have to see about that. But, he wants to come in, but it's really the agents that are, of course, fighting to get him 100% guaranteed. And, of course, they would. That's their job. But we're going to training camp next week, and so it seems like, based on this, it's probable that this will get done before camp. And, of course, AG and Muji will want it to get done. But it'll be interesting to see who blinks. Are they going to give him 100% or not? It's almost like, well, if the other teams did it, you kind of have to do it. It's like, they got it. Why are you balking? Why are you being a cheapskate, Woody? So Phil says, hey, it's okay to be happy. Jets fans just not used to multiple happy days. Yeah, that's what I've been trying to say, Phil, is like, let's enjoy these days that we got where it's happiness. Todd says, I'm usually too busy to do much typing, so it's yours to get, Phil. Oh, it's giving up the crown. Look at Todd giving it up. I just want Chimenia, to eat his words, forget the tomatoes, we're throwing pumpkins. Well, pumpkins are hard to throw, Big Green. Listen, Big Green. If you're going to be chucking things, now, you may not know, old Frankie was a college baseball pitcher. Okay, I know about throwing things, all right? I threw like 86, 87 miles per hour. That's not major league ready, but pretty good. And I had a big curveball. So when you're throwing things, you want something you can control, Big Green. How are you going to throw a pumpkin? It's too big. Now, a tomato is a nice size. A nice rotten tomato, get it right in the palm of your hand. Let it go. Put a little backspin on that sumbitch. And just wing him right in the ear. Pow! Something like that. Right in the face. Boom! I mean, he deserves it, right? I mean, the guy's been covering the Jets for 30 years. That's 30 years of being a complete fucking douchebag. And nobody ever goes up to him and says, "What are you doing, douchey? Why are you being so douchey, douchebag? Repent." 30 years. I mean, how about a retirement for this guy? Can this guy retire? Let somebody else do the job. He obviously doesn't enjoy the job, is the other thing. It's like, this guy does not enjoy his job at all. Not one bit. You could tell by the way he writes and the way he looks and the way he talks. I mean, the man has a podcast and he talks like this. Hello, my name is Rich Amini, and this is the Jet Fight Podcast. Like, what the fuck is this? Get somebody else who actually knows how to speak. God's sakes. Well, there's somebody else who can't be neutral at least and present facts as they are instead of these bullshit opinions that he comes out with and always got to shade things incorrectly. And then has a podcast where he has the most annoying voice of all time. I mean, what is this? What is this? Really? And he's doing it 30 years. Maybe it's time to go into a retirement home, Dickie. What about that? The retirement home for the old douchebag beat reporters. I mean, I'm sure they have a retirement home for that. They feed you Jell-O. They feed you some tapioca. You get some soup for lunch. I mean, it's a good deal. It's a good deal. And you could be as negative as you want with your fellow retirement home denizens. But then we don't have to hear about it. Yeah. But that's why you can't do pumpkins, Big Green. It's not good. JoJo was a man from Tucson, Arizona. Get back, JoJo. He says, it's a good day. Jet fans, yeah. Big Green says, why is it the language, look at the Browns precedent? Well, precedent is very important. Agents will always look at precedent. So that's just the way it is. Any updates on AVT, Simpson? Nope. Keeping O-line together should be a priority. That's what I think, JoJo. I think we got to get Mason Taylor signed, get him in here, get that behind us, and then let's move forward on AVT and Simpson. I agree. And those contracts should be relatively easy. Those guys will be relatively cheap. AVT will have a lot of escalators. The AVT contract will be easy. You give him some solid money guaranteed, but then he's going to have escalators every year because of his injury history. So you give him a nice contract, solid, but then because he has elite potential, you give him escalators that if he stays healthy and performs at an elite level, which he can do, then he earns more. Incentives. He should get an incentive-laden deal. John Simpson should get a solid, deal, 8, 9, something like that, 3 years, somewhere in that range. Very modest for a guard, but he's not, he's not a Pro Bowler yet or anything. So you should be able to get him pretty cheaply, which is good because I do think he's kind of underrated, even by people like Brandon Thorne. I was looking at Brandon Thorne's rankings of the guards in the league, and they do have John Simpson in the top 15, but he's toward the bottom. He's like 14th. And you got to go, all right, well, this is better than, 32nd. But I think he's better than that. But, I'm not the expert. Brandon Thorne is. But because of that, if that's the way it is, and we think and maybe he is better than the perception, then, and he doesn't have any hardware or anything like that, then you can get him pretty cheap. So that's the good side about that. So yeah, no, there's no word. And if you think about it, JoJo, there was no word about Garrett Wilson. The Jets are a tight ship right now. They're not letting anything out. I mean, there is no leaking going on. That's one thing. Right now, no leaking going on. And you would expect that to be the case. Everybody's new there. Muji's getting his entire staff. Everybody's coming in. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. What's your name? Oh, where's the bathroom? Over there? Okay. So they don't have time to leak. They don't even have relationships with the reporters yet. You know, we got to get these people in there. And also, we haven't started losing yet. So, you know, there's nothing to leak about and be upset about yet. Everybody's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're going to go get it and turn this thing around, everybody. You know, this sort of thing. So they're not leaking. And if nobody's leaking, the reporters have nothing to do. This is what I keep telling you guys. These reporters are completely at the mercy of their sources, which are usually the agents, but sometimes the clubs. If the agents and the clubs aren't talking, these guys have no opinions, have no information to bring to you. You know? They're useless. It's like the easiest job in the world. You just sit around waiting for people to text you. Oh, I've never seen such an easy job. Phil says, never noticed Joy's mouth. Well, if you notice the way I said it, Phil, there are other things about her that other people might take a look at. I don't know. But I don't know what those things would be. I'm just saying there might be. You know, like the set around her or something. JoJo. Joy Taylor usually talks down the Jets on TV. Let's see what happens now. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's an interesting thought. Maybe Joy Taylor will turn into a Jet supporter. But also, let's hope Mason doesn't at some point become disgruntled, because then, then she'll go scorched earth on the Jets. But hopefully everything goes swimmingly. He has a beautiful career. He's not unhappy at any point, and he becomes part of our young core as well, along with Membu, at least from this draft class. That would be very nice. And maybe she becomes a Jet supporter, positive on the Jets. Big Green says, they got small pumpkins. Oh, that's true, I guess. Why is Chimini still working? He's ever... Yeah, exactly. Exactly, JoJo. Basic Salamis here says, he's from Asia over there. He says, I think the pumpkin can be thrown like a throw in soccer. Yeah, but that's not a very good throw, a soccer throw. The specialists can get some power and distance on those. Yeah, but they can't throw it 87 miles an hour like old Frankie. I threw a baseball 87 miles an hour, PC. You know what I'm saying? So how fast do you think I could throw a tomato? Now, I'm a little older now, so. But I'm not going to throw a damn regular-sized pumpkin 87 miles. I mean, you got to wing that thing. I mean, you got to make somebody regret that they're alive and that they've done all the things that we're doing. This is supposed to be a punishment. It's not supposed to be just, tossing a thing and it lands and explodes on the ground. Nobody cares about that. You got to punish somebody. It's like back in the day. Let's talk about back in the day, shall we? Back in the day, somebody hit a home run off of old Frankie. No problem. You hit a home run, okay. It's part of the game. But, if you want to stand there and Cadillac it and do the moonwalk and, look at it for 6 minutes, that's not going to go over well with old Frankie. And guess what? Next time you go up there, you're going to get a little chin music, all right? Because you have to be punished for your actions. You can't just get away with disrespecting the game of baseball with old Frankie on the mound. That's not going to happen. So all those Cortland guys, where Will Parkinson went to school, all those Cortland guys who like to, do that, they got a little taste of their own medicine. And there were a few dust-ups, I got to say. But that's the way it goes. And you got to punish people for bad actions. When has Dick Chimney ever been punished by anybody for all these years of violations of journalistic ethics, violations of the art of journalism, violations of just being a general douchebag in society? Like, we can't have douchebags in society running around in positions of authority or positions of status. We could get somebody to cover the Jets much better than Dick Chimney does for ESPN. I guarantee you we can. It's not like that job is undesirable. So, we got to think about the punishment aspect. The man must be punished for what he's done. What a douche. Deshaun Watson. Yeah, so Deshaun Watson precedent is something that is actually a topic of concern in another news story. But if you remember the talk of that, Big Green, when it happened, everybody was scared that, oh no, this is going to be a precedent for other quarterback contracts. And in fact, the NFL and the NFL management advisory group and the NFL-PA was involved as well. There's some shady business going on. This is a video I might do this week if I feel like it. About that contract and about how they advised the management advisory council advised the clubs never to ever to do that again. And the NFL-PA is saying, hey, wait a minute, that's collusion. You can't do that. And it went to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator said, yeah, it's collusionary, but it's not significant enough, or something like that, and there was no penalties. And now the NFL-PA is appealing that. Well, the problem with the NFL-PA's position is that it's just logical that you don't need to collude to understand that if you give a 100% guaranteed contract of that size to a quarterback, that's going to most likely affect the rest of the market. I mean, you don't need to collude. That's just logic. Everybody knows that. So that's the problem with saying there's collusion. It's like maybe there is collusion, but it's like logical. Like everybody knows that's the case. Like they're not colluding to say, okay, keep everybody under $20 million or something like that. Everybody knows if you do that, it's bad for everybody else. It's just everybody knows that already. But yeah, and again, it's the Browns. But you notice they did it with Deshaun Watson, and now they did it with their second-round pick, the linebacker. What's his name? Schlesinger, something like that. And again, it's the Browns. So I don't know. The Browns have been a very bad team for a very long time, despite having, one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time, and lots of talented people on the team for a long time. Had an excellent offensive line. They had Nick Chubb for all that time. Denzel Ward, all these people, and they still stink. And at some point, somebody has to look at Andrew Berry and say, "What are you doing? What exactly are you doing, Andrew? We understand you went to Harvard. Okay, you're a smart guy. Yeah, fine. But you're giving out all these contracts. You're screwing around with all this and screwing up the market, and locking everybody into these guaranteed contracts, which we don't want, because then the guy gets injured and you still got to pay him, and it still counts against your cap. You can't get rid of him, or just non-performance or whatever it may be. And what are you doing, Andrew? And nobody says, well, you've had very talented teams. You went and did what you did for Deshaun Watson, of all people. That's been maybe the worst quarterback situation ever, for what you paid. I mean, you not only traded for him and gave away all your picks, then you gave him all this money, and on top of all that, you guaranteed it without ever seeing him on the field. And then he gets on the field and he stinks on ice. And nobody's saying fire Andrew Berry. Why not? Where's all the people with pitchforks in Cleveland going, fire this guy, he's an idiot? I mean, Joe Douglas screws up Zach Wilson pick. All right, I'll get rid of him. But Andrew Berry can do all that and have no repercussions whatsoever. Why? It's the same thing with Chris Greer. It's the same thing with Mickey Loomis. It's the same thing with Duke Tobin. It's all these people. They can just have the job for decades and decades, and no matter how many mistakes they make, it's like, all right, well, we'll try again next year. We're not going to fire that guy. I mean, geez. Why? I don't get it. But, the minute the Jets GM does something, wrong, oh, we got to get rid of him. Get rid of his ass. You got to put him on the street. But these other guys can be there for decades and decades. It's crazy. Todd says Ryan Clark used to badmouth the Jets. Now his son on the team. I can't wait to see his opinions. Well, Ryan Clark, if you remember, he would have some bad things to say, but remember last year, or I think it was last year, he showed up to training camp saying, "I'm a fan of Robert Saleh." He had a shirt that said "Robert Saleh fan" or something like that. I support Robert Saleh, something like that. So he runs hot and cold. But yeah, I mean, but we're probably gonna have to cut his son. I mean, his son's probably not making the team. So how's he gonna feel then when his son gets cut? Hank G says, now what's next? Well, if it were up to me, it'd be John Simpson, AVT, Quincy, and of course Mason Taylor. Staying put until training camp? Well, I don't know. We got to get Mason Taylor signed, Hank. That's for one. We've been talking about that. And that's for sure. And then the other two that we might want to do, they don't need to be done. But John Simpson and AVT would be my picks to be next, but they don't need to be done. We could wait on those. I would not. Yep. 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 Phil Adams says, getting hit in the nuts with a cricket ball at 60 plus miles per hour certainly brings tears to your eyes. Well, do they not wear a cup? See, that's a problem with baseball. You can't try that in baseball with a ball because everybody wears a cup pretty much, except for the pitcher usually. Well, JoJo, we've talked about this a few times, but when it comes to the beat reporters during training camp, so the number one guy to listen to is Robbie Sabo. He gives you, even though he writes kind of flowery and thinks he's, William Shakespeare. Other than that, he gives you good information. He's not gonna, lie, and he's not gonna be overly negative. So number one, Robbie Sabo's the man for that, Jets X Factor guy. Then number two, you have to parse what the other guys are saying very carefully. So for example, if somebody says this guy looks better than he did last year, that's probably true. Or this guy looks worse than last year, that's probably true. Or the offense looks better than last year at this point in time, that's probably true because they're seeing it with their eyes and they've been there a long time. Hughes has been covering the Jets since 2014. Cimini's been 30 years. Rosenblatt's been a few years now. But the main reporters who break news and say interesting things are Rosenblatt, Hughes, and Cimini. They're the only ones, and that's because of who they work for, not who they are. But they're the ones who say sort of unique things. All the other beat reporters basically just repeat what the other people say. So those are the main reporters. It's Sabo number one on top, Robbie Sabo. Then Hughes, Rosenblatt, Cimini. Now, Hughes, Rosenblatt, Cimini, you got to parse what they say and try to figure out what it actually means. Sometimes it means just what it is. Other times it's not. You got to read between the lines. So that's that. The best thing that they do is tell you how things compare this year to what they were last year, because that's just obvious using their eyes, and they're not putting any spin on it usually. Jets Worldwide is here as clown level reporting. Yeah, for Cimini. Yes, I do. He's a top 10 corner. He's not a great tackler. He supposedly put on some muscle this year, and with AG in his corner and Wilkes, they're probably going to improve his tackling. The interceptions is mostly a function of them not throwing at him very much. Although he did have some opportunities where he dropped them, like the one against Dak Prescott, if you remember that one. Phil Adams says a cup is called a box, but it still rattles the love spuds. All right. Well, good evening. Hope everyone's doing well, says Aunt Jets 82. Yeah. It's a good day to be a Jet fan. Sauce Gardner's contract is actually an $85.6 million contract, not 120.4, because 85.6 is the guarantee, so that's what he's guaranteed to get. And if he continues to be at an elite level, so the first 2 years of his career, he was a top 3 corner, top 2, top 1, some say. Depends how you measure it. And then last year he fell off a little bit, but he was still top 10. And so if he continues to be a top 10 level or even better, top 5 level, then he'll make all of his money and we'll be happy to pay him. But if not, in the last 2 years, none of the money's guaranteed for Sauce or Garrett. And so if they fall off, if they have injuries, whatever the case may be, we can very easily move on from them, trade them, cut them, do new deals, whatever it may be based on the situation. So I think these are great deals for Sauce and Garrett. We should be very, very happy with them, etc. Sabo mentioned a few weeks back that Fields still looks slow to pull the trigger on pass, looks unsure in the pocket. Yeah, well, that's always going to be the case, and you don't know why. And also, trying to characterize what Sabo was saying in a comment is not really fair. I'm sure he had a paragraph or two worth of words about Fields, and at times that's going to be the case, and at other times it's not going to be the case. I mean, I watched and charted all 6 of his games last year with Pittsburgh, and sometimes he gets rid of the ball fast, and sometimes he holds it. So, I mean, just is what it is. And every quarterback sometimes looks unsure in the pocket. Every single one. Even Tom Brady looked unsure in the pocket at times. Can the Bell get some camera time? There it is. Smiley face Bell. Ladies and gentlemen. I think Ryan Clark's son does make the team. Well, yeah, so I wouldn't say you took a peek at his tape. I would say you watched his highlights, Todd. That's 2 different things. But, I mean, he could make the team, sure. It's possible, but I wouldn't count on it. Well, let's take a look at the roster, shall we? Something I enjoy doing is looking at the roster. Now, he does have the advantage of our safety position is not very strong. And we also have 2 Clarks. Let's do a little push in on Jordan Clark, which is the son of Ryan. JoJo, as I've mentioned 10,000 times, the cap is not affected by these new contracts this year. How many times do I have to say this? The cap this year and next year is not at all affected by these contracts. The cap is not affected by these contracts because they are extensions. God's sakes, man. For fuck's sake. We have $30 million before these contracts. We have $30 million now. There's no problems with the cap. These are extensions. They're not making... Sauce Gardner is not making $30 million this year. He's going to be making $30 million in 2027. And same thing with Garrett. Garrett is not making $32 million this year. He's making it in 2027. They're playing on their rookie contracts through this year and next year. Then this contract extends them. They have 6 more years. Therefore, we have $30 million and we can sign players, which I think is what you're getting at. We have money. We have plenty of money. And we have a bad roster like we're looking at here, especially on defense. This is no good. There's not enough depth here. And so we have the cap space. Justin Simmons is still out there. Blackman is still out there. There's safeties out there that we could improve the team with. And there's Zadarius Smith is still out there. Jadeveon Clowney's still out there. Hell, Von Miller's still out there. I mean, there's players that are much better than what we got, and we have the space. So there's no problems. But right now, our starting safeties are Andre Cisco and Tony Adams. This is who we got. So you see these people here now. The blue is the UDFA. So we got Dean Clark and Jordan Clark. So Jordan Clark is the one that is the son of Ryan Clark. So, but he's not a cornerback. I'm going to change this. But we do have Jarius Monroe. We do have Jalen Simpson. We do have Malachi Moore. And we do have Isaiah Oliver. So how these... Now, normally you're going to carry 4. Malachi Moore's making the team, for sure. And I would think Malachi Moore's the big nickel. So then the question is, who's the backup free safety? Is it Isaiah Oliver? He's probably got a leg up, I would say. He's got experience. He can also play cornerback. He's versatile. And then you're probably not going to carry a 5th safety. You could, but typically you don't. And especially if they're not, unless one of these dudes shows out in camp, then, more than likely Jordan Clark goes to the P squad. I mean, if he's worth that much. But he would basically have to beat out Isaiah Oliver. And Isaiah Oliver has a lot of experience. He also has a lot of versatility. He can play free safety. He can play nickel corner. He can play boundary corner. He can play dime corner. So that's a lot of versatility in one player for a backup, which is what you need if you're a backup. So that's what Jordan Clark and Dean Clark and the rest of these people are dealing with. So... does he have a path? Yeah, he has a path. He has to beat out Isaiah Oliver, in my opinion. Let me know if you think any differently in the chat. But that's the way I see it. I mean, I don't really see a way for Jordan Clark. Now, he could ball out. Anybody could ball out in camp. I don't know. It's not like I'm an expert on Jordan Clark's game. I mean, I've seen the highlights too, Todd, But, in the highlights, he looks fine. But, basically he's got to beat out Jarius Monroe, Jalen Simpson, Dean Clark, and Isaiah Oliver. It's a tough task. Tough task. Joe Mike is here, everybody. Joe Mike. Frankie, if Jermaine Johnson didn't get hurt and had a 10-plus sack season, do you think he would have been next? Oh, yeah, for sure. The only reason we're waiting on Jermaine is because we got to see how he does coming back. He probably will be fine. But you never know. Some people, and he seems to be ahead of schedule and seems to be just fine. But you never know, so there's no real reason to rush it. But yeah, if he had balled out and was a Pro Bowl player, we probably would have signed him too. But we got to wait. Tony Alexio. Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. I've been yelling and screaming about it since it was happening live. I was the one who put out an emergency live stream saying, Darren Muji making terrible moves. I did that on the day he didn't sign Levi Onwuzurike and did sign Chukwuesakorafor and then subsequently signed Nadi and Tufele and Rashad Weaver and all these people and Byron Cowart. So I agree, Tony, but I've been screaming about it since back then, since the free agency period, and we have plenty of money, and we are not to date signing anybody, and we didn't draft anybody, and I was very disappointed by the fact that we spent draft picks on Tyler Barron and Kiko Mauagoa instead of at least in the 5th round grab a defensive tackle. Do something. Maybe this Fatorma Mulbuck can do something. I don't know, but he's a UDFA, so what are the odds? So we have a big problem. I've been screaming about it for a long time. Teams are going to do duo blocking schemes up the middle and run right up the middle in the A and B gap and kill us. Now, if that happens, then I will come back and tell you I was right. Not that anybody cares. I told you this was going to happen last year. And then I went on Gunny's channel. Told everybody what was about to happen. Then it happened exactly as I said. Then after the season, I went back on Gunny's channel and people were basically throwing tomatoes at me. And I was like, I'm the one who told you what was going to happen and why and how exactly. And it happened. And then I come back to tell you how I think we should fix it. And they're throwing tomatoes at me, verbal tomatoes. And I was like, all right, I can't go on anybody else's channel, I guess. It's like, man, I mean, people were trying to tell me that a 3-4 defense is not appropriate for the modern NFL when half the league runs a 3-4 defense. Oh, Jet fans. But yeah, Tony, 100%. These guys are not good enough. Derek Nottie had a 35.8 grade at PFF. Not that PFF grades are the Bible, but 35.8 is pretty bad. One of the worst in the league. That's who we signed. Jay Tufele, not much better, 44.4. So we better hope maybe Byron Cowart can do something, and maybe Leonard Taylor III can do something. Maybe Fedarian Mathis can be something. But that's a lot of hope and prayer. These are not proven players by any stretch. Probably the best chance is Taylor, and then the second best chance would be Cowart. But that's a lot of hoping and a praying, and that's not good. That's not good. Joe Mike, run stopping still an issue. Getting Jay Johnson back helps, but we need more run stuffers. Well, yeah, they're going to run up the middle. They're not going to. I mean, Johnson's good at setting the edge, and also he doesn't play 100% of the snaps. So guess who comes in when he goes out of the game? Michael Clemens. That's who we have, or Eric Watts. Some unproven UDFA. But yeah, they're not going to. So Jermaine Johnson will help contain the edge, but they're not going to run toward the edge. They know that already. Offenses attack your weakness. They look at your team and how you play, and then they go about attacking your weaknesses. And the weakness right now is in the middle, just like last year. We didn't solve for that, and it's annoying the hell out of me. All because we had to have Brandon Stevens for $12 million. Phil Adams. So, trying to read AG's mind, is he not taking these quality vets out there because he wants to mold the team of youngsters? Well, Derek Notty's not a youngster. Jay Tufele's not a youngster. Byron Cowart's not a youngster. What's the point of that? I mean, we could have had Levi Onwuzurike, who's 26 years old, and we didn't get him, Phil, so how does that fit in? We could have very easily had it, and that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. We had an opportunity to do so much more and better this in the free agency period without overspending and going crazy for the same amount of dollars, and we just decided not to do it. Onwuzurike is 26 or 27 or something like that. He's not an old guy. So, I mean, I don't understand. And he's also come out and said, somebody asked him about that, and he said, no, as long as they make our team better, we'll take them. And, replacing, if you put Zadarius Smith here as a backup edge over Eric Watts, that's a huge, huge improvement. And it's not going to cost you that much. So just going for youth only and skipping out on talent is a recipe for disaster. Now, in general, we wanted to get a little bit younger. I mean, yeah. And places where it was, marginal, we did that. We got rid of our punter and our kicker, because it wasn't going to make a big difference whether you have Harrison Mevis or Zerline. It wasn't going to make a big difference if you have Morstead or young punter. It wasn't going to make a big difference. So swap them out. And the same thing with the quarterback position and a guy like Devontae Adams, okay, who's a big, let's say a big personality, has a heavy personality in terms of people listening to him and being influenced by him. And same thing with Aaron Rodgers. He didn't want those people. But, we did sign Josh Reynolds, for example. That wasn't a problem. We did sign Chuks Okafor. He quit on the team last year. We brought him in. So he's going to be an exemplar of, molding a team in his image. Chuks Okafor quit. He said, I'm leaving. I don't want to play. I'm done. I'm quitting. I signed a contract. However, I got benched, so therefore I'm upset, and I'm staying home on the couch. That's what Chuks Okafor did. So how is he molding a team of youngsters in his own image when he signed a quitter? Explain that to me. So, no, I think the best explanation I have is that they have a cash budget, and they decided to divvy up the budget, a big part of it, on Brandon Stevens, and then now they don't have that much. And even though they have cap, their cash budget has been exceeded probably, or is it right at the edge? That's the only explanation I could come up with, because there's plenty of players out there that could improve this defense. And AG would want to improve the defense, one would think. for a lot of reasons, just to have a better team. And also, he's a defensive guy. So in his first year as a head coach, you would think he would want at least his defense to be strong as possible. And so that's why I think, I think they just made a decision to go for Brandon Stevens and do a big expenditure on him. And that took up, along with all the other signings, Fields and Sherwood and so forth, took up a big part of their cash budget. Now, I don't know that. And the person who's going to probably tell you that is Connor Hughes, somebody. So next time Connor Hughes has a Q&A, I'll send a question into him. Maybe he'll pick it up. That's the other way we can use the beat, by the way. When they have a Q&A, write in smart questions. I see all the questions people write in. It's all the obvious, boring stuff. I try to put in something intriguing, interesting. I got, what's his name? Bert Breer to answer me about the tight end situation with the Jets, for example. I didn't love his answer, but he took my question and I got his opinion. And now he went to Ohio State. So, of course, he brought up Jeremy Ruckert because he's a big Ohio State guy, because he went to Ohio State and he's also from Boston and he's a Patriot fan, just so you know his leanings. But so I didn't love his answer particularly, but that's an example of how to inject some dialogue into the large platforms that these people do have. So I think maybe for Connor Hughes, maybe I'll ask him about the cash budget this year, because that's my current pet theory, is that they had a certain amount to spend. They made a decision that they needed Brandon Stevens. I can kind of understand why. Brandon Stevens, as opposed to Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens is a really good tackler, by the way. So that's something he does do very well. And he's very athletic. There's other things he does very well. But one of those things is for a cornerback, he's an excellent tackler, as opposed to Sauce so far, who is not. So far. And let's see if he improves with AG and Wilkes and all the coaches this year. Especially since we gave him all that money, you could maybe try to make a tackle, Ahmad. But, it's the way it is. Frankie's right again. Yeah, Tony. I wish I wasn't. Now, I do hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope we watch the games and I'm totally wrong. They try to run it up the middle and we stuff it. And I'll say, thank God I'm wrong. Thank you, Jesus. Because I don't want to be right and have the Jet coaches be wrong. I would hate that. I would rather the Jet coaches and Brain Trust is right and Frankie's wrong. And I'll come on and tell you guys, hey, I didn't realize blah, 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 whatever the reason is. And I'll tell you the reason why we're doing good if we are. I didn't realize Jay Tufele was going to, whatever it is. I've watched Jay Tufele play. I didn't see him very good. I watched Derek Nottie. I watched a bunch of the Chief games last year. Nottie's always getting blown off the line. He's got no more power in his legs anymore like he used to have. But maybe, I don't know, maybe he's been injured. Maybe he was injured. Maybe who knows what the hell. And maybe he has a career resurgence and it's like, oh, wow, look at this guy. And I'll tell you, and I'll be happy to be wrong. I'd prefer to be wrong. Because if I, here in my apartment in Florida, can tell you and diagnose what's going on with this roster and what's going to happen and how teams are going to attack us and then be right, that doesn't say a lot for our coaches, does it? Because I don't get paid to to know about football. Not that much. So that's what we're doing. Sluggo's here. Sluggo says, better stay healthy because bench is weak. Well, if you're thinking about the defense, I mean, these guys all have to play. The D-line rotates. Remember, Quinnen is going to play 65% of the snaps. It's not like baseball. So Quinnen is going to be rotating out, and 65% is high for Quinnen. And same thing with everybody else. They don't play that many snaps. When you're A-gapping, these guys get gassed. That's the other reason I don't like a 4-3 defense myself. But these guys get gassed because you're asking them to move a lot and be the superstars. And if you're asking a 4-3 defense to have your defensive linemen be superstars, they better be superstars. And we have one superstar, one guy who maybe could be, and another one who is against the pass, but not the run so far, and then a big blank 0 next to Williams. So It's not really. Well, they do have to stay healthy, that's for sure, because then it's a disaster, because then everybody moves up one, right? But that's a total disaster. But even so, Nadi's going to play. Taylor's going to play. Clemens is going to play. Tufele is going to play. Some of these other guys, I'm not sure what the new coaching staff's going to think about them, like Watts and McGregor. McGregor's probably going to get cut, practice squad, maybe. I mean, it depends what they do in camp. Tyler Barron's probably making the team because we just drafted him, so Watts maybe gets cut. I don't know. Rashad Weaver, I mean, they signed him. He was basically almost out of football, Rashad Weaver. But we signed him for some reason. I mean, so, yeah, it's thin. And it's thin because these guys are going to play. These guys in the second string are going to play. And right now, Jamin Davis, I would say, is linebacker 3. I got the strong safety being Andre Sisco. I don't know if that's the case. But I don't know who else among these people that are our safeties could play strong. So it's curious roster building. We had the money. There were people out there. There still are people out there that can improve the roster, and we're not moving on them. It's curious. Tony says, Brandon Stevens is an expensive bust. Well, so far he's been. He hasn't been good enough. Now, you watch the tape, and there are things you like about him. I can see why they like him, but what I don't understand is why they had to spend $12 million on him. If we picked him up for $3 or $4 million, I would understand completely, and I'd say, wow, that was fantastic. But for 12, you cost yourself. So it's not just that we signed Brandon Stevens. We signed Brandon Stevens for $12 million. So we got Brandon. So for that $12 million expenditure, we got Brandon Stevens. Okay. Instead of that, we could have spent the same $12 million. We could have gotten Brandon Eccles, Tyler Conklin, and Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle of the Lions. That's 3 players who all would have played a role probably. And we would have had a 4th-round pick because the signing of that big of a deal for Stevens canceled out the Kinlaw signing with the Commanders, which we would have gotten credit for. So instead of having Tyler Conklin, a tight end that could have rounded out our tight end room nicely, Levi Onwuzurike, who would have been our starter next to Quinnen and much better than these bums we signed, and Brandon Eccles, a quality backup who would have played on special teams, been a backup of your 2 boundary safeties, your nickel and your dime, and in a pinch free safety. And we would have still had A.Z. Thomas. A.Z. Thomas and Eccles then could have fought for the starting position. You hope A.Z. Thomas wins it. And we would have had a 4th-round pick next year. We didn't do any of those things because we had to have Brandon Stevens. So it's not that we got Brandon Stevens. I like Brandon Stevens, especially as a person. He's a very nice young man. He works very hard. He has some good attributes that you like. He's a very good tackler. He's very athletic. He's fast. But so it's not that we got him, and it's not like I don't like him. It's we spent $12 million and didn't do all those other things because we did that one thing. And that is a hallmark of a general manager who's in over his head. Because anybody can sign Jamie and Sherwood. Anybody could, in our situation from this offseason, could have signed Justin Fields. That was an obvious signing for us to do. Anybody could have. Now, they did them very smartly, but anybody would have signed Gardner and Garrett. They were good signings. I like the way they did them, so that's promising. I like the way they structured the deals. I like the guaranteed money. I like a lot about it. But it was obvious we had to sign them. Like there really wasn't much of a choice. We had to sign them. It was just how the contracts were going to look, and we did a good job with it. But when you think about the opportunity cost of that $12 million, it's substantial. It was a substantial mistake. Now, maybe Stevens turns out to be a Pro Bowl corner, and AG and Wilkes and Dre Bly and all of our coaches help Brandon Stevens become a Pro Bowl corner. Okay. Then you got yourself a Pro Bowl corner. But what you don't have is somebody who can stop the run. I mean, Quinnen Williams is going to spend his life double and triple teamed this year. You think he's going to be happy? when he has like no stats because he's triple teamed every time and double teamed every time? I mean, he's going to have no stats. How's he going to have any statistics? How's he going to be a leader? I mean, he's supposed to be one of the leaders on our team, and he's going to be trying to fight off double and triple teams every time. And nobody can really do that. It's kind of hard. So he's not going to be too happy. So that's what we get. Joe Mike. Michael Clemens, yeah. Well, we have to have Michael Clemens because we didn't sign any of the other people, as we talked about the other day, Joe. Paisan. The AFC East has been put on notice after these moves. Well, no, not really. Paisan's the Bills fan, I think. And everybody knows, look, the Bills, you guys going on a Super Bowl run. We get it. We're not in your class. No problem. AFC East has not been put on notice. These are just moves. These are just like moves. These are signs that maybe the Jets have a functional, let's say functional, front office. They're going to make the moves that are obvious, and they're going to do so in a smart way. Okay, at least we don't have crazy bastards like, Adam Gase running around. All right. I mean, I guess that's, we put on notice that we don't have crazy bastards running around. Okay, that's good. But it's not like anybody is really scared of the Jets with this roster, even with these signings, as good news as they may be. For this year in particular, that's, nobody's on notice, I would say. Joe Mike is here. I'm holding out hope that the Jets will be very active in waivers and roster cuts. I mean, come on, Joe. I mean, of course we are going to be. But guess what? We're 8th on the list, Joe, for waivers. So if there's anybody good, there's 7 teams ahead of us, Joe. They're going to grab them. Now, roster cuts, if a guy gets a straight out cut, that guy is probably a veteran, and he's probably looking for a place to go and win. So relying on that, number one, is a losing strategy because you don't know who's going to get cut and waived. Number 2, we're 8th on the list for waivers. So if there's anybody good who gets waived that would be valuable, most likely not going to come to us at number 8, though it certainly could. But, if every team needs good, well, not every team, but many teams need improvements at defensive tackle, at linebacker, where else would a tight end, maybe a wide receiver, safety. But there are people out there now. Like there's people out there now that we could sign. Justin Simmons is still unsigned. Julian Blackmon is still unsigned. Zadarius Smith is still unsigned. Jadeveon Clowney. They would be massive upgrades to what we got. They're sitting there. Jadeveon Clowney loves the Jets. He said so. He came in and had an hour-long meeting with Joe Douglas, an hour long, in his office, where they were shooting the crap back and forth. They loved each other. It was a love fest. And even after Carolina offered him a 2-year deal, he came back to us, even though he's from Carolina. He came back to us and said, would you like to match or do better than this? And Woody said no, because he wanted to sign him to a 1-year deal, and he got a 2-year deal from Carolina. But even though he played college in Carolina, he's from Carolina. Carolina offered him a deal. He still came back to us. So he must have liked something about the Jets. Now, Joe Douglas isn't here, but still, why don't we sign him? The way you sell it to Jadeveon is like, listen, you're going to get a lot of playing time here. You can put up some numbers here, bud. Get you another contract for the following year, Put up a 10-sack season, somebody's going to sign you next year. So, counting on cuts and waivers is just not a good strategy, number one. Yes, of course we'll be active in that market. Of course we will. But you can't count on that, Joe. You just can't count on it. I think they think Derek Notty's good. I think they think Byron Cowart is good. Oh, this says Brian Cowart. It's Byron. Brian. I don't even know these people's names. That's how bad they are. Byron Cowart. I think they think they're good. And defensive tackles are hard to come by. Good ones. They don't just float on the waiver wire, Joe. Generally. I mean, we got John Franklin Myers that way, miraculously, but. Sluggo says, Clemens is a perfect example of statement, don't judge book by its cover. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, hit the like button, Todd says. Hit the like button while you're here on this day of Sauce Gardner being extended by the New York Jabronis. Hit the like button. Why don't you subscribe to the channel while you're here also? Might be good. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel or join the membership tiers. We got the inner circle, we got the inner square, we got the inner triangle. Support old Frankie so that I can produce more excellent content for you. Don't be a jabroni. Hit the like buttoni. Jets worldwide. Frankie, do you believe AG and Muji are aware of lack of run stopping on defense? Well, this is the key question. They might be overrating the players they have. Maybe they think Cowart and Taylor are really good, and then Noddy will come back to form, and then this foursome, because you need 4 at least, is good enough. Now, I mean, on the edges, Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine's good, but coming off injury. McDonald has not proven he can stop the run and set the edge. Behind them, we have nothing. You see what we have. It's nothing. So what are they thinking? I don't know. These are 2 people in particular who are very well-respected defensive minds. So I don't know. I would say let's see what they do. I mean, there's not a lot you can do when your defensive linemen are getting blown off the line of scrimmage by the offensive line. There's nothing you could do schematically. What are you going to do? Have this safety come up and fill a gap? I mean, so what? So, I mean, so the answer is yes. I mean, of course. Every defensive coach knows you have to stop the run and you have to be strong up the middle and you have to have a strong defensive line. So maybe they think these players are better than they've shown and that we think. I guess. Because, of course, they know this. Which is why it's so perplexing. And maybe they'll do something, and maybe they know Derek Nottie was injured last year, or they know Jay Tufele is going to use some technique. I don't know. Just looking at it on paper, though, it's troubling, but, shoot, man. Especially Wilkes. I mean, Steve Wilkes is known to be a really good defensive mind. I've been disappointed by him so far, but we haven't seen him do anything. But just by the people we've acquired and not acquired, and some of the comments he's made, I've been a little disappointed in Steve Wilkes. But at the same time, I know he's a very well-respected defensive mind, so we'll see. And maybe it is Leonard Taylor's is going to be a monster, or Byron Cowart's really underrated, and Derek Nottie was injured last year. I don't know. But still, who's on the edge behind Jermaine and Will? I mean, it's very thin. And get ready to see Michael Clemens. Get ready. Paisan. It's a good thing it got done. Continuity is important, especially in a young locker room. Oh, yeah, it's a good thing, Paisan. And maybe you were here in the beginning. It's a good day to be a Jet fan. These are good days. We locked up 2 of our core pieces. We're very happy. These are happy days. These are going to be some of our happier days in the next, 24 months for sure, because, we're going to probably do a lot of losing. So it's a good day. We got the logical things are getting done. I think one of the things we can think about in terms of this front office and the Jets organization as a whole is these signings represent a return to normalcy. It was obvious that it had to get done. It didn't have to get done this year, though. We could have waited, but we didn't. We decided to be proactive, and we did the contracts in a smart way. And we got ahead of the market, and we haven't hurt our cap. We didn't rip up these 2 years, of course, and so that was logical and obvious, but also smart that we didn't do it. So the front office is getting the obvious things done. That's not my problem with the front office. And so that's good news. At least there's not a bunch of weirdo idiots running around running this franchise, at least at the moment. Uh, but my problem is some of the other things they've done, which are some of the non-obvious things which we were discussing a little earlier. Um, and so we'll just have to see. But this defense certainly lacks the talent to be a top flight or anywhere close to average defense, really. And that's, I mean, it's annoying as a fan to watch a team who can't stop the run. By the way, I mean it's one of the it's one of the worst fan experiences when the other team is just gouging you. That is one of the worst fan experiences possible. Oh, what do you think you'll get on the speed gun with a rotten tomato? These days, I don't know. I got to get a little practice in. I don't know. 75? 75 miles per hour. What speed would the said tomato degrade? Well, it depends on how degraded it is. Normally, the tomato is going to hold up, unless it's like in really bad shape, it's going to hold up physically until it splatters. That's the whole point of a rotten tomato. It's got to splatter somewhere, like on Rich Samini's head. And then it splatters, and then it's no longer a tomato. Sluggo, if the O-line gels, we'll score in that RPO, and if we do decent defending run, well, that's true. So here's the optimistic case for the Jets. There's two things that could raise the level of this team. One, well, three things. One, the offensive line, like Sluggo's saying here. If you have an offensive line that's top notch, and that's a big if, we got a rookie over here, we got a second-year player here, and so forth. But if this offensive line, if it is top five, let's say, that raises the floor of the team because now you're able to really do things on your own terms offensively. So that's number one. And the O-line includes the tight ends, which includes Taylor, Ruckert, and the rest of these jabronis. And then number two, of course, is Justin Fields. If Justin Fields improves and continues on his upward trajectory, then of course he can raise the level of the team if that happens, but that's a big if. And then number three is fundamentals. Maybe this team is just going to be so fundamentally sound that it's unbelievable. And maybe they don't make splash plays, and maybe they're not the greatest, but by being fundamentally sound, they can be an average defense, 14th, 15th, 16th in the league like that. And the fundamentals, the boring old fundamentals, are going to be the thing that raises the floor of the team. That could be. I mean, the Patriots did that for a long time, where they would just be fundamentally sound and wait for you to make a mistake. And you could move the ball on them, and you could score on them on occasion, and they wouldn't be the best defense in the league, but they weren't going to beat themselves. They weren't going to make any mistakes, and they would just wait for you to make a mistake, and then you did, and then they would capitalize on it. Well, the other thing you don't know, PC Salami, is that I, in addition to being a former college pitcher, was also a former United States Stickball League player, and was an all-star in that league at 17 years old, playing against 30-year-olds. By the way, they didn't like that. And so in the United States Stickball League, we would burn down the fuzz off of a tennis ball and use that burnt down tennis ball, and we fast pitched it. So I have experience with various projectiles, in this cannon of a right arm I got over here. Well, I did anyway back in the younger days. Joe Mike, the game versus Buffalo last year, where they basically ran the ball up our gut, was pure torture. We couldn't stop a nosebleed in that game. There was a lot of games like that, and yeah, it is pure torture. It's the worst thing to watch on television. It's like, it's so frustrating. But maybe the fundamentals will save us. We'll be fundamentally sound, and maybe that'll do it. I don't know. Todd knows a guy who shoots apples from a cannon on the 4th of July. As of yet, it appears to come out as applesauce. Well, we'd have to check out the mechanics of the cannon. I mean, when you say a cannon, what are you talking about? Because an apple would be too small for a conventional cannon muzzle. So we need to know what type of cannon is this? What are the mechanics? How does it work? And what's going on? So there's not enough information provided here, Todd, for us to do a full analysis of applesauce cannons. Head coach Glenn should be better disciplinarian than Sala. Yeah, team penalties, all that thing. So maybe we'll just be fundamentally sound, Sluggo, because with Sala we were not. Sala was too player friendly. He wanted to be your buddy. He didn't want to be your disciplinarian. That's not going to be the case with AG. So maybe less penalties, just fundamentally sound, not making mistakes, and maybe that raises the level of this defense just that way. Maybe. I mean, those are three things to watch that could help the team be better than people think it is. Being fundamentally sound raises you above the level of your talent. When your whole team is fundamentally sound, you can be better than your talent says you are or should be. Says it's ship's signal cannon. Very old. Well, maybe that's a problem. I don't know, Todd. All right, but I think that'll do it for today. Thanks for joining. The Jets, in case you missed it, the Jets have extended the contract of Sauce Ahmad Gardner. 4 years, $120.4 million contract, 85.6 guaranteed. So it's a happy day to be a Jet fan. We've now locked up Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, hopefully AVT, John Simpson, maybe even Quincy might be along on the way with other extensions, and also Mason Taylor before the training camp begins. Let's hope we get him into camp. And with that being said, you can leave a thumbs up on this video. I'd appreciate it very much. Please subscribe to the channel. You can join the membership channels. And don't forget that there's also an XP system. I'll have to check who's number one on the list right now. It might be Todd. It might be Phil Adams. It might be Sluggo. It might be PC Salami. We don't know. But there's an XP system in the chat now on YouTube, and you might be number one, or you might be number two, or you might be number three, or you might be number four, or you might be number five. We don't know. But it all depends on how good of a commenter you have been. And so maybe you can rise up the ranks. Maybe you can't. I don't know. But there's certain things you could do, could not do. And, you might want to check them out. That being said, I'll see